The live show is brought to you by Garden Express and Yates.
Garden Express are Australia's leading mail ordering service, offering a wide range of quality gardening products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show, you jump online and visit their website.
From indoor plant care to garden weed control products, Yates is the secret to a thriving garden. Later in the show, the team at Yates will share their top gardening tips and tricks for you to try this weekend. And for more advice to make your garden bloom, head to yates.com.au.
Hello again and welcome to another episode of the Garden Gurus Live, your opportunity to have all your garden questions answered directly by us at the Garden Gurus. Once again, this week we'll have a $50 Garden Express voucher to give away to our favourite question. So we'll pick our favourite question, send out the $50 voucher to, so make sure you get your questions in early. Thanks to all of those people who have already got your questions in during the week, either on Messenger or via email. It helps us get those questions in early so I can have a little sneak preview at them. Remember to include your location with your question. It really helps when I'm trying to work out what the problem or the issue is with your plants. There were so many we couldn't get to last week, that we had a few left over, so that's where we'll start with this week. But before we get into the questions, we ask you to please tag all your friends in the comments and share the live right now, just so we can build up our audience and get more people sitting in and watching the Garden Gurus Facebook Live. A quick weather wrap around the country. So here in Perth, it is going to be a beautiful 29 degrees. It's lovely and sunny, hardly a breeze around, but we're looking at mid-30s over the weekend and during the week next week. So apparently that's bikini weather, but it won't be for me. Sydney, 29. Melbourne 32 with a shower, of course. There's always a shower in Melbourne. Brisbane's currently 30 degrees, so warming up there. 33 in Adelaide, and I believe you've had a little bit of extremely warm weather in Adelaide over the last week or so. Hobart, a beautiful 25 with a possible shower later, and Darwin 31, and of course with a storm later. Let us know how the weather is in your part of the world and how your garden's coping. Now, one of our favourite segments, we're going to talk to Angie from Yates, see how she's going in her garden, see what's happening in the world of Yates. Good morning, Angie. How are you?
Good morning. Oh, it's a very humid day here in Sydney. So yeah, it's a bit sticky, but we've had some rain and it's hot today. So everything is just growing, it's so lovely to have it green and lush, and it's a great time to be a gardener, even though it's a little bit sticky.
It's always humid in Sydney, though, isn't it?
It can be. It depends how close to the coast you are. You might get a little bit of a sea breeze. I'm inland, a little bit sort of southwest of Sydney, so not so much of a cool sea breeze. But we keep on gardening, a big hat, long sleeve shirt, and out we go, and just get our fingers wonderfully dirty.
Yeah, and drink plenty of water and you'll be absolutely fine. So what's happening in your garden world at the moment, Angie?
Yeah, so grow lots of veggies. So I've got lettuce and I've got strawberries and I've got tomatoes. I've got lots of fruit trees coming on, so I can see my little apples starting to develop. But what comes with all that beautiful fruit and veggies that I can harvest is unfortunately the caterpillars. So tomatoes get caterpillars on the leaves and also in the fruit itself. My mint with caterpillars, they love that minty freshness and they chew through buckets of it. So
good for their breath.
That's right. Also roses. So caterpillars can get on roses in the buds. They can chew through the flower buds. I've seen flower buds look like they've been shot right through because the caterpillars, it's like the Very Hungry Caterpillar story. Like he's just chewed right through that flower bud and you're left with a hole in it. So
that's where my mind went to straight away.
Yeah.
Hungry caterpillar.
We should rewrite the story actually and go through all the plants in the veggie patch and our ornamental gardens there. That's right. That would be on my list of things to do for next year. But I've really got to stay on top of the caterpillars. And one of the tools in my garden shed to control caterpillars is Yates Success or Yates Success Ultra. So it really is a specialist caterpillar spray. It's had a really interesting history. So the active constituent in Yates Success started out as a beneficial soil bacteria, and they ferment it and they put a little bit of a turbo boost on it. And not that I expect people to remember this, but the active constituent is called spinetoram, but it starts its life as a soil bacteria. It's really good for caterpillars. So whatever you're growing, whether it's tomatoes and other veggies like lettuce or herbs like mint, roses, it's really good for controlling caterpillars on a whole wide range of plants. Also, if you've got growing pear trees or cherries, it's really good for pear and cherry slug as well. So even though they look like sort of slimy leeches, the pear and cherry slug, which really decimate the leaves, like they skeletonize the leaves, they're actually a type of caterpillar. They're a larvae of a sawfly. So I'm seeing lots of chat on social media from people who've got pear and cherry slug on their leaves. So you can spray your pears and your cherries with Yates Success, and that will help get rid of the pear and cherry slug as well. Also, although it does caterpillars, it also does western flower thrip as well. So western flower thrip is a really nasty thrip. It does damage itself by sucking on leaf tissue, but it also can be the vector of a whole lot of nasty viruses as well. So Success is really good for controlling all sorts of caterpillars and also pear and cherry slug and western flower thrip. So I'll be hunting through my garden for caterpillars that won't last very much longer. So
very good. We've had a lot of issue with thrips in WA over the last few years. So that's a very good advice for our WA viewers as well.
Yeah, no, it's there's no point in letting all your plants be decimated by caterpillars. There's just no need for that, and also the western flower thrips as well. And I mentioned too that it's warm, it's humid, things are growing. And sometimes spring can be really short, but if you've had a lot of rain or even a little bit of rain, it really helps to extend spring out. And I want to really make the most of spring. So I'm feeding everything. I've got roses and salvias and hibiscus and all sorts of, and gardenias. I'm just feeding everything. So if you're growing flowering plants at home, grab something like Yates Dynamic Lifter for roses and flowers. So it's a mix of Dynamic Lifter, that fragrant Dynamic Lifter that we all love, but it's fortified with some extra fast-acting nutrients as well. So it's really high in potassium. Potassium is the nutrient that promotes flowering and fruiting as well. So if you're growing flowering plants, look for something that's actually specially been made for roses and flowers. So I'm going to spread some Dynamic Lifter around, which is always a very therapeutic thing for me to do, and my plants are going to love it as well. And I've noticed I've got a few summer weeds creeping into my lawn, things like thistles and dandelions, capeweed and plantain. So the winter weeds are sort of stopping, like the bindi and the clover. They tend to die down, or hopefully we've controlled them by the end of spring. But now the summer weeds are coming, so I really want to make sure that our lawn is barefoot ready for all the cricket matches and the Christmas parties and the get-togethers. There's nothing quite so lovely as walking on the lawn in bare feet, and it's soft and it's lovely and it's lush and it's green. So I'm going to get out my weed and feed, and I'm just going to give it a really quick once-over with weed and feed, and that's going to control the most common broadleaf weeds that I've got in my lawn, and that's going to make it looking lovely for Santa as he lands his sleigh in my backyard.
Now, you got to have a good lawn for Christmas Day, especially if you're hosting Christmas. So what are your plans for Christmas this year, Angie? Are you hosting Christmas, or
I'm having an early Christmas actually, and then I'm going away. I'm lucky enough to be just before Christmas heading over to Europe for Christmas. I'm going to have a white Christmas, but there's things to do between now and when I go away. So feeding, watering, controlling weeds, all sorts of things to get my house ready for gatherings before we go away. So yeah, it's all very exciting.
It sounds wonderful. Have you got someone looking after your garden while you're away, though?
I do actually. I'm taking my kids away, but my husband is staying home, and he's. I'm giving him a long gardening list. He's got to look after our sheep and our chickens, and must water my tomatoes. So it's kind of handy that he's staying at home.
All right, Angie, great talking to you as always. I hope you have a fantastic Christmas. I probably won't see you before then, and really enjoy your trip to Europe. And I hope when you come back, for your husband's sake, that your garden is in really good condition.
I'll be watching. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas to you. Talk to you soon. Thank you very much for Angie. Some great advice there. Particularly, I'm very interested in the issue with the thrips on the roses. We've had a lot of problems with them in WA over the last couple of years, and getting on top of them, keeping our roses in really great health is very, very important. So we're going to jump in. We've actually got 2 plants of the week this week. So we're going to jump into the first one. Our lovely producer Holly brought this in for me. She's very excited about it. It's a poinsettia. So Poinsettias are the classic Christmas plant. So as a table decoration, just putting them around your garden in beautiful pots. They just really say the festive season and look stunning at this time of the year. So they're naturally a winter colour plant. So in your garden, if you grow these in your garden, you'll get these beautiful modified leaves, these leaf bracts that get this beautiful red colour. These are actually the flowers right in the middle, these tiny little insignificant buds of the flowers. These are modified leaves. So it's beautiful colour. Normally comes on in winter. That's their natural time of the year. But our very clever wholesale growers modify the conditions in their greenhouses, in their plastic houses, and trigger this colouring up of the foliage and leaves and flowering at this time of the year, so we can enjoy them in our summer Christmases. So beautiful little plants. You'll see them in all your garden centres, even in your supermarkets and hardware stores. They'll be readily available. Red is the classic colour, the absolute classic colour for poinsettias, but you can get other colours. There's pinks, there's creams, and there's also double and triple forms of the foliage colour to really give you a little bit of variety. Now, they are great in pots. They are great in small pots at this time of the year for table decorations. But what a lot of people don't realise, or don't seem to realise, is they also make really good garden plants. They're a type of euphorbia. Euphorbias are really tough. In fact, some euphorbias are really bad weeds. They're so tough and can just tolerate any conditions you can imagine. But this particular euphorbia, the poinsettia, if you harden them up, so they've come out of plastic houses where they've been getting all amounts of TLC and really been pampered and to get them looking stunning for Christmas. But if you take them outside, gently harden them to the conditions, you can plant them out in a semi-shaded to full sun area, and they will grow right through the summer months, and you'll get them in the garden as a garden plant and flowering beautifully. And once they're established, they're really hardy, super drought hardy. One thing, one small word of warning about the poinsettia, they have a milky sap, and any plant with a milky sap is toxic, and the sap itself can cause really bad reactions to some people if you get it directly on your skin. So when you're handling them and when you've got them as a garden plant and you're pruning them and dealing with them in that way, be really careful, wear gloves, and also wear safety glasses. So they don't have any spikes, but they do have that milky sap. And if you're cutting away and you happen to flick some of that sap into your eye, it can cause a lot of problems with your eye, and get blistering and really badly affect your eye. And you might have to go off to the doctors, which can be a little bit expensive. But as a table decoration, buying them at this time of the year, putting them in a nice pot. Holly's got this beautiful little shiny pot, which is typical Holly, and putting it on your kitchen, your table, your lunch table on Christmas Day is an absolute stunner. So well done to Holly, and I hope everyone goes out and buys themselves a beautiful poinsettia. So we might jump into some questions now. We've got Leonard Percival has tried growing tomatoes in pots this year, and they're fruiting, but a couple of tomatoes, bright red on top, but still green on the bottom. Has used a granular fertiliser and wants any ideas. Well, Leonard, that tomato just mightn't be fully ripe yet. So if you just wait a little bit longer, the tomato will ripen on the vine or on the plant. You can cut that tomato and take it inside, put it on a sort of sunny windowsill in your kitchen or somewhere like that, and it will also ripen up. But you'll find if that's red on top, it's probably got a good flavour through it already. But bring it inside and ripen it on a windowsill will work, or just leave it on the vine for a little bit longer and get a little bit more colour on it before you pick it. Tomatoes are really good for growing in pots, particularly the cherry types, the mini Romas. Those little beautiful pear tomatoes are fantastic for growing in pots. Nice big pots, so 30 to 50 litre. Use a premium potting mix, liquid feed them regularly. I like to put a tray under mine, so when you water them, any of that excess water will soak into the tray, and then you don't need to water them again until that tray is completely dry. The good thing about growing them in pots compared to in the garden, you've got complete control over the soil. So if you've grown them in garden beds for many years and you're starting to get issues with things like root knot, nematode, growing them in a pots is a great option to avoid that. And as I said, the smaller growing varieties or the smaller fruiting varieties tend to be the best ones for pots. So give it a go if you haven't grown tomatoes, and even if you've only got a balcony or a townhouse, you can definitely still grow some beautiful tomatoes. Now, Irene Cook is hoping we could tell her has a dwarf Santa Rosa plum and wants to know if it's a self-pollinator. And if it's not, what she needs to act as a pollinator tree for the Santa Rosa. Santa Rosas aren't self-pollinating. You may get occasional fruit on its own far better with a pollinator. And the ideal pollinator for Santa Rosa is Satsuma. Satsuma and Santa Rosa are sort of the iconic pairing in the plum world. Two very good quality plums. The fruit is magnificent on both of them. So they flower at the same time. They are beneficial pollination between one to the other, and you'll get lots of fruit on both trees and very good quality plums too. So go out and grab yourself a dwarf Satsuma, and that'll work with your Santa Rosa next season, and make sure you get a really good crop of fruit. Peter Roberts has sent us in a photo of a very unhappy looking grevillea. It's very sort of sticky, has a lot of brown foliage through it, and brown sort of sticky looking growth, doesn't look very healthy at all. So Peter, there's a couple of things that may be going on with that grevillea. The first thing I would check is soil. So check the soil pH. They don't like the soil being too alkaline, and you can get them in with this sort of sickly looking growth if the soil is really alkaline. The other thing is sun. Grevilleas prefer a full sun area. I can see the eaves of the house quite close to the grevilleas in this photo. So if they're getting shade in the afternoon and getting a lot of shade, that can cause this sort of thin, sickly looking growth as well. The other thing too is grevilleas do like a regular feed of a good quality native fertilizer. So check the soil. There's probably not much you can do about it if it's not getting enough sun. But now's a good time of the year where you can give it a prune, go around, prune it up a little bit, cut all that sickly looking growth out, give it a light feed, some seaweed solution, a bit of wetting agent if the water's not soaking into the soil very easily, and see how it grows over summer. If you get the pH of the soil right, a bit of fertilizer, you should still get good growth and hopefully a few more flowers than what you've been getting. So thanks for Peter for sending in those photos, and sending photos in is a great way to get your garden problems diagnosed. So it's descriptions are fantastic, but photos are even better. So if you have an issue with your plants, and you can get a photo into us, we'll send them into us to Holly at guruproductions.tv, and Holly will forward them on to me to have a look at. And we're going to play a little clip just to show it how easy it is to send photos in and get the best advice possible for your garden problems.
Gardening question you'd like us to answer and you need to send us a photo, well, simply head to our Facebook page and click on message. Type out your question and click the camera icon to take a photo in the app. Or click the image option and select the image you want to send us. Be sure to allow Facebook access to your camera and camera roll. We check our messages regularly, so sit back and be sure to tune in to the Garden Gurus Facebook Live show every Friday, and you'll hear your answer.
Thanks for that information, Trev. That looks very, very easy to do. Valerie Perkins says she has a yellow cherry tomato and it's got worms in it, which is what we were just talking about with Angie, and wants to know how to keep them at bay. Well, Valerie, there's a couple of things you can do. You can spray with the Success Ultra to knock off those caterpillars before they get an opportunity to get in and infect your tomatoes. Make sure any tomatoes that have been damaged, you pick them off and get rid of them as well. So you're removing any of the juvenile worms before they can get out and get into your other tomatoes. The other thing you can do is net your tomato to prevent the moths from getting to the plant, laying its eggs on your tomato, and then the caterpillars come out and make a mess of the fruit. And just go out at night, take a torch out at night to the tomato plant and go through and pick off as many of those caterpillars as you can see as well. But hitting them with the Success Ultra just to knock off any little juvenile caterpillars before they get a chance to grow into great big hungry caterpillars and dig holes into your tomatoes would be absolutely ideal. And those yellow cherry tomatoes are delicious too, by the way. Kathy Davidson in Pinjarra in WA wants to know the best place to purchase Indigenous plants in WA. Well, there's a lot of good native garden centres around in Perth. Kathy, I don't know down around Pinjarra, but in Oakford, there's Australian native nurseries. And they are exactly what they say on their sign. They're a specialist Australian native nursery garden centre. They do also have a strong focus on WA natives. So that's not too far from Pinjarra. And I reckon that would be your best place to go in and see there. They're absolute experts in WA Indigenous plants, and they're really passionate about it as well. So if you go in there, tell them you're really interested in growing Indigenous plants. They'll be more than happy to help you out. Now, she's also managed to strike a grapevine. It's coming along nicely and wants to know if there's any advice and for care to make sure that grows into a really good, productive plant. Well, Kathy, I'd probably keep that if you've got that fresh cutting recently struck. It's still in a pot at the moment. Try and keep that in that pot or keep it in pots right through the summer months. You may need to repot it early in the new year, say January, February, just so you can give it a little bit of extra TLC and get it through this first summer and then plant it in autumn. Once we get past the worst of the summer weather, we get the sort of slightly cooler days and the promise of a little bit of rain, that's the perfect time to plant those grapevines. They'll establish really well at the back end of autumn and be ready to take off in spring, and you will get fruit on those grapevines this next summer, the summer 25-26. Rochelle Steins is about to have packers in to move and wants to give some advice about how to prep her standard gardenia plants in pots so they have a great chance of survival. They're moving in a container for 5 to 6 days. That's a fair while for potted plants to be in a container. Rochelle, I've been involved in wholesale plant production for many years, and we've over the years bought many plants across the Nullarbor where they've been containerised for probably more like 3 to 4 days than 5 to 6. But the key is give them a really good water the day before they get picked up. You don't want to do it of the morning they get picked up because there'll still be so much water running out of the bottom of the pot. Maybe pack something like sphagnum moss on top of the root ball as well, and then some newspaper and tape that all down, try to hold all the soil in them. You can give the plants a little bit of a light prune, but I would actually leave that, unless they're really big and scraggly, leave that till after you unpack them because they'll probably get a little bit of damage in the move and require a bit of light pruning. That way, then it's really just fingers crossed that 5 to 6 days is no more than 5 to 6 days. Get them out of the containers, give them a good soak with some seaweed solution, but water them enough so the water really runs through the bottom of the root ball and out the drain hole and really refreshes the root ball of those plants. But some seaweed solution over the next few days and gently acclimatise them back to the sun. And they should be fine. Like they might sulk for a little bit, but gardenias are surprisingly hardy, a lot more hardy than they're given credit for. And I would be very surprised if they didn't deal with that move very well for you and be back in very good health very soon. Try and put them into a situation that's similar climatically to where they're coming from. So the same amount of sun and shade as well, and that will certainly help them acclimatise pretty quickly too. Love gardenia, it's one of my favourite plants and flowering magnificently in the moment, and that perfume is just impossible to beat. Now we go to Jeanette Luscombe, has a Daphne with yellow leaves and green leaves going curly. So could be a couple of things going on there, Jeanette. So Daphnes don't like wet feet, and one of the sure signs of wet feet with Daphnes is a lot of yellow leaves. Some yellow leaves is not a problem because as the leaves age, they do go yellow and then they fall off as the new growth comes through. Curly leaves can mean something like thrips has got into the foliage of the Daphne, and that will cause distortions in the leaves. So have a look under the foliage, even if you tap the foliage gently out onto a piece of paper and see if any little tiny, almost microscopic thrips drop out. So you might have some thrips there, and the success ultra would be a good cure for that. But just make sure that if they're in a pot, that the pot is draining really well and that the Daphne doesn't have wet feet all the time. They like to stay moist, but they don't like to be sodden. They're can be a little bit sooky, the old Daphne plants, but if you get them in the right spot, they're very easy to grow and definitely worth the trouble. Now, unfortunately, Rowan is unable to join us this morning, but we still have, he sent us through a really great Garden Express deal for us. So particularly this is been coming up to Christmas time, and we've all got those people that we have to buy a gift for who can be really difficult to buy for, and you're not sure what to get them. You don't want to get them the wrong thing. If they're a garden lover, the best thing to do is to get them a gift voucher. And going through Garden Express at the moment, you can get a fantastic gift voucher and they can take advantage then of some of the special deals that Garden Express have to offer. So spend $50 and get a $60 gift voucher. Spend $100 and you'll get a $120 gift voucher. Spend $150, be a good friend, and you can get a $180 voucher. A $200 spend will get you a $240 gift voucher. So that's a great incentive to get the gift vouchers. And remember, this is all before post for Christmas, super sales. You'll never get better value than that. And for your special garden-loving friend, this is a fantastic idea. Garden Express gift vouchers can be ordered now online and delivered direct to your recipient's inbox, and they can start shopping immediately if they want, or they can wait till Christmas Day. It's entirely up to them, because Garden Express is open for business 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and best of all, they deliver directly to your door. So you go out to the front door and you're ready to go and you can get into the garden. This week, so we don't have Rowan in today, and we did have a question from last week, but we don't have Rowan here to answer it, so we won't be able to help out. Holly has put up the link in the comments, so you can get in and get those great deals on the gift vouchers. So straight now over back to the Q&As. Michael Hurst, good morning, Michael. How are you? Enjoys the shoe. I think that's supposed to be show. But he might, I don't know, Michael might have a really nice pair of shoes as well. Can you please let me know the benefits of blood and bone in the veggies and how different it is to other fertilizers? Cheers, Mike. Well, Mike, blood and bone is a great option in the veggie garden. It's a nice, gentle fertilizer. It provides a wide range of nutrients, and it's slow release. And the great thing about blood and bone, it doesn't only feed your plants, it also feeds the soil. So it's really good for those soil microbes that the veggies really rely on to get to absolute peak health. So blood and bone, a fantastic option, all parts of the garden, but particularly in the veggie garden. Can be a little bit whiffy, but gardeners don't mind that. Now, Lee Varell in Brisbane says, good morning, Darren. I'm in Brisbane, have little grasshoppers eating my plants. What home remedy would you recommend and what can you spray on them? Well, grasshoppers can be really difficult pests to control. They're very active and they move around quite a lot, so they move from garden to garden very, very quickly. You can use something like the Yates Success Ultra. That will help with grasshopper control, and so will Baythroid. Baythroid will knock grasshoppers down as well. The other thing you can do is with your garden, if you can attract as many birds into your garden as possible, so lots of flowering plants, lots of nectar giving plants, lots of habitat for the birds as well, and you get lots of birds into your garden, they will eat those grasshoppers. They'll be very grateful to be in your garden, and they'll clean up those grasshoppers for you as part of the deal of you providing them with a fantastic bit of habitat. So if you have to spray them now to get the numbers down and get them under control, you may need to do that. But as a long-term plan would be to make your garden as bird-friendly as possible. Stephen Wilson wants to know when's the best time to plant garlic in South Australia. Well, Stephen, the general consensus for planting garlic is around Anzac Day. So it does vary a little bit depending on the weather, particular weather patterns at that time of the year, but normally around Anzac Day, and it's sort of planted Anzac Day, and you're normally harvesting around Remembrance Day in November. So it's a good sort of guide, but you can sort of adjust that to the weather at the time. Natasha Jones has sent us in some photos. She's just planted a dwarf magnolia and wants to know what's eating it. Well, by the look of those flowers, there's a lot of things eating it, Natasha. So the plant itself does have a really nice flower bud coming out in it, beautiful sort of burgundy coloured one. And it's got some big holes in it, so that could very easily be snails and slugs. There's a lot of snails and slugs around still at this time of the year, and they absolutely love magnolias. The other thing that could be eating those is grasshoppers as well. So grasshoppers will attack that new foliage. What I'd recommend is try and get out in the garden a few times at different times of the day and see if you can actually catch anything in the act. That's the best way to find out what is eating those flowers and foliage. But I'd say you've probably got a few snails and slugs around and a few grasshoppers, particularly that new growth. Probably looks more like snails and slugs, and caterpillars are getting in there and chewing on that new growth. All those pests particularly like that soft new growth on the magnolias, but they'll recover, they'll grow, and as they get more mature, they're a lot more resilient to it, and it's far less of a problem. Beautiful plants, those deciduous magnolias, I love them. Our second, so we had 2 plants of the week. Our second one is a beautiful hydrangea. So we talked about the poinsettia being a bit of an iconic Christmas plant for the home and garden, but probably the hydrangea just as much so. So this is obviously a beautiful blue hydrangea. Hydrangeas do also come in white and some bicolours. There's a whole range of hydrangeas available now, and a lot of different variety in the size that they grow to. So there's heaps of dwarf varieties, there's some larger, taller growing varieties, and everything in between. So if you like hydrangeas and you want to really mix them up, you're absolutely spoilt for choice. Now, hydrangeas do have a reputation for being a little bit tough to grow. They're a bit soft and need a lot of water, and the hydra means water, and that's part of their name because they do like a lot of water. But once they're established, particularly if you take a bit of time to prepare the soil, get them in the right soil profile. They like a slightly heavier soil, so a little bit of clay, some organic material, some compost, a bit of well-aged animal manure mixed into the soil. Once they're established, they're actually pretty hardy. You know, they might take 2 summers to get enough of a root system to really support them through the hottest part of the year. But once they get that critical mass of root system, they're a lot tougher than they're given credit for. Pretty easy to look after. Some of the older varieties may be a little bit susceptible to a bit of powdery mildew and a couple of fungal diseases. But other than that, they're pretty much disease-free. Give them a tidy up as the flowers finish, feed them through the summer months, prune them up to tidy them up in the winter months, and that's all you really need to do. If you want to get this really intense blue colour in the flowers, you do need to keep the soil quite acidic, and something like a hydrangea bluing tonic is a really surefire way to make sure you get the most intensity in this colour as you want. If your soil is going a bit alkaline, these flowers will go pink. So they're actually a really good indicator of soil pH as well. Fantastic in the garden, but also brilliant in pots. So if you get some of the smaller growing varieties, you can grow them in pots for many, many years, and they'll be very happy just in a premium potting mix, somewhere where they're getting a bit of afternoon shade. Keep them well watered during the summer months, and they'll reward you every year around this time of the year with these beautiful displays, and something really worth growing, and will be out in the garden centres en masse at the moment, so you'll have no trouble finding some beautiful hydrangeas. Back to the question. So Teresa Elliott, it's more of a comment than a question, has heard a cup of molasses to 3 litres of water and spray for grasshoppers. Well, I haven't heard that one, Teresa. Some of these older sort of folk remedies for dealing with garden pest problems do work really, really well. So it'd be worth a try. Not everyone has a tub of molasses lying around the house anymore, though, so you might have to get yourself down to maybe a horse feed lot and pick up a small tub of molasses and give that a go and see how that goes with the grasshoppers. I imagine they would be attracted to the sugar content of the molasses. Wendy McComb is on the Gold Coast and has a small garden that is wet all the time and clay soils below. It gets sun until the afternoon, and what plant will survive there? Well, Wendy, that's a really tough spot with that really wet soil and sun till the afternoon. I'd be looking at some of the native grasses, so some of the lomandras, some of the dianellas will deal with those sort of issues, and some of the plants you naturally see growing around the outside edges of ponds and lakes. So cypress grasses, canna lilies, all those sort of things would do reasonably well in those conditions. If you want to grow a wider range of plants, you might be looking at needing to build some raised garden beds, so you can put some free draining garden soil into those and just keep that root system of the plants so they're not getting waterlogged all the time. Clay can be really hard work. We in WA, Perth gardens are pretty much all on sand, and sometimes I'm very, very grateful for that. Janine Napier says you can grab molasses from Coles. Well, there you go, Janine. That shows how little shopping I do. I did not know that molasses was available from Coles. Worth a try if you've got a problem with grasshoppers and you don't want to use a stronger pesticide spray, giving the molasses treatment a go and see how it works for you. I'd be really interested to hear how other people go with it as well. Now, Natasha Jones has asked, how far apart do you plant hydrangeas if you want to plant them along a fence? Well, it does depend a little bit, Natasha, on which varieties of hydrangeas you get, because some do grow quite tall or quite wide. So, but maximum would be 1.5 meters, but as a general rule, somewhere between 80 centimetres to 1 metre for most varieties will give you a beautiful dense hedge effect with those hydrangeas. And they'll probably only take 2 summers to really fill out and be looking fantastic. So around 80 centimetres to 1 metre would be my recommendation, unless you get one of the really bigger growing varieties. Robin Kent is in southwest of WA and wants to know how to get rid of gnats in his veggie pod. Caught them in the thousands, those yellow sticky tapes. Use neem spray and garlic spray, and be very grateful for a little bit of help. Well, fungus gnats in the veggie pod would be a big problem, but to me, it's probably an indication that that veggie pod is staying too wet. So you might be overwatering it, and that's very attractive to the fungus gnats. You can, if you go to your local garden centre, they do carry fungus gnat sprays that have been designed for indoor plants, and that will knock the fungus gnats off. But you just have to read the labels on the containers very carefully to make sure they're not excluded from use on edible plants. But I'd be looking at getting those veggie pods a little drier, because they sound like they're just too wet, and that's just being far too attractive to the fungus gnats. And maybe leave the lid off for an extended period during the day while that's happening to try and dry it out and get rid of the fungus gnats that way. Good luck with that, Robin. Let us know how you go. Lisa Rowden in Victoria has 2 bay trees in pots, and they've been going gangbusters in new growth, but every day there are heaps of yellow leaves. She takes them off, but the next day there's more, and wants to know this is only happening on the old growth. Wants to know what she can do to stop this and if it's deficient in anything. Well, Lisa, you can't really stop that. That's the old leaves just going through their decay process before they drop off the tree. If you have bay trees and the bigger they get, you're going to get used to having a lot of leaf drop, because they do drop a lot of leaves. They're quite vigorous trees. They grow really fast, and as they're pushing out new growth, some of the older growth and the older foliage on the old growth yellows off and drops off. It's not really a problem with the trees. The only thing that could exacerbate it and mean you're getting like more of those yellow leaves is if the trees are getting either too wet, being in pots, or too dry. So as long as that soil moisture is fine, it's probably just their natural growth habit to have yellow leaves. They fall off the new growth, the old growth, and then you get plenty of fresh new growth on the trees. You can liquid feed quite regularly with the bay trees in pots, because they don't have access to a large area of soil. Liquid feeding is a really good way to go as well. Amanda Watts is having trouble getting rid of stink bugs from their citrus trees. They just don't die. Yes, unfortunately, the stink bugs, or the crusader beetles, a bit of a curse of the fruit trees. They love that soft new growth. Baythroid will knock the stink bugs off, so you can try spraying with the Baythroid. You can get that as a ready-to-use sprayer and hit them with that. You find the stink bugs or crusader beetles are more of a problem on the new growth. So because the new growth is really soft and quite luscious to the stink bugs, that's very attracted to them. As that new growth hardens off, you tend to see less of them around. So just keep the tree healthy, keep it well watered, make sure they've got adequate nutrients, mulch tree, all those sort of things we do for citrus trees to keep them in really good health. And it should just grow out of the problem as the weather goes along. As we get into a bit of hotter weather, they should disappear. But if they're proving really troublesome, a spray of Baythroid will knock the bulk of them off. Teresa Elliott in Bundaberg in Queensland. The birds have stripped her peach and nectarine trees, and wants to know whether she can cut them back now and how much she can cut them back. Well, Teresa, if the birds have stripped them and taken all the foliage off, you can definitely give them a prune back. So you wouldn't be taking any more than about a quarter off the tree, but each tree. But try and keep in mind when you're pruning them, you want to develop a shape that makes the fruit easy to harvest. So you're trying to keep a lot of that fruiting wood quite low. But also, if you need to net, if you're netting for birds, if you're netting for fruit fly, you want to try and get that tree at a manageable height and keep it there. So you're taking about a quarter, maybe up to a third. Give them a good water after pruning. Apply a wetting agent, a little bit of fertiliser, maybe some compost and a mulch, so they're in good health. And they will bounce back into fresh growth very, very quickly. Very hardy trees, peaches and nectarines, and as long as everything else is going well for them, having the birds come in and knock all their foliage off doesn't really hurt them. It just sets the tree back a tiny bit. Joe Salter has an ornamental pear that has edges of the leaves look like they're burnt. So I'd say they're blackening off, and wants to know what's going on with those ornamental pears. Joe, I do see this quite a lot with ornamental pears, and it tends to be an issue with the soil, and it's normally the soil is starting to go quite alkaline. So in Perth, I see it where ornamental pears are used in near coastal areas, and the soil has quite a high pH. We tend to see a lot of blackened leaves that curl over and don't look very healthy for much of the year. So check your soil pH. If it is high, try and get the pH down a little bit. So plenty of compost, plenty of well-aged animal manure, mulch with an organic mulch, liquid feed them regularly, and just try and push that pH down and get the trees in a healthier condition, and then the foliage should naturally improve. Christine Rankin in Stirling in WA has never had any luck with gardenias and wants some tips. Well, Christine, I actually find gardenias really easy to grow. As I said earlier, they're one of my favourite plants. They're very fussy about soil. So if you grow them in alkaline soil, or even soil that's only a tiny bit alkaline, then they can be very difficult to grow. One of the mistakes a lot of people make with gardenias is because they like similar soil to azaleas, they tend to think they're shade lovers like azaleas, but gardenias actually like a fair bit of sun. They're quite closely related to citrus, so they like sunny, warm areas. So find somewhere where they're getting plenty of sun, the soil is well drained, the soil is acidic, and feed them in spring, summer and autumn. And that's all I really do with mine, and keep them in great condition that way. If you have soil in your garden that's not really suited for gardenias, the perfect solution is to grow them in pots. They make fantastic potted plants, and then you can have them in strategic areas when they're in flower, so you really enjoy that beautiful gardenia perfume. So they make great patio plants, on the front porch, that sort of thing. But growing in pots is really the easiest way to grow gardenias. And the simplest potting mix to use for gardenias is the Azalea Camellia potting mix. All the big brands make a really good Azalea Camellia potting mix, and gardenias will thrive in that. So more sun than you probably think they need, acidic soil, and feed them regularly throughout the growing months. Susan Bones has said, I mentioned poinsettias. Can you purchase holly plants anywhere in Perth? Suzanne, I have seen holly plants, but I haven't seen them for a while. They're the sort of thing, if you hunt around, you might find somewhere like one of the independent garden centres might have a small stock of them. One of the things with holly plants is they're either male or female flowers, and the beautiful thing about hollies in the traditional sense at Christmas time is to have the berries on them. So you have that beautiful dark green foliage and the red berries, but you'll only get red berries on the female trees. And also hollies do grow into really big trees. They're sort of a 10-metre plus tree when they get growing in the ground. So not a lot of people have that sort of room. So that's another reason why you'll probably find less hollies around than before. But if you have a hunt around, some of the specialist garden centres, the smaller independent ones, are more likely to have it than some of the bigger chains. But I'm sure if you ask around, you'll be able to find them. Frank Green wants to know any advice for growing sunflowers, more specifically, when do they die? Do I just leave them and will they regrow next year, and what maintenance is required? Well, Frank, sunflowers are pretty simple to grow, so you need some reasonably rich, healthy soil to grow them in, free draining soil, open sunny area. The hints in the name there, sunflowers love lots of sun. Get the seeds in spring, just sow directly into the ground. They'll shoot up pretty quickly, start growing very, very strongly. They're annual, so they'll grow, flower by the end of summer and into autumn. Those flowers will start turning into basically big seed heads of sunflowers, and that plant then will be finished for the year. So once the seeds are ripened, you pull them out. You can collect the seeds and store them in somewhere dry and out of the humidity till next spring, and regrow them, grow new stock from the seeds you grew. If you go through each year and select the strongest, best performing your sunflowers, and then keep the seeds from those ones, they'll be better plants for you next year as well. You'll end up breeding up your own really strain of sunflowers that really suit your own particular garden. Definitely worth growing. They look fantastic in the garden. They're very easy to grow. There's not too much to do. Keep them well watered during the warm months while the flowers are coming, and they'll look fantastic. But remember to collect seed from the strongest growing and best performing ones to sow again next year. King in Waterford wants to know if it's okay to prune non-fruiting branches of the longan tree as they're getting out of control at the moment. King, you can definitely prune those branches off your logan trees now. Now's probably as good a time as any you'll have throughout the year to do that, to keep the logan tree under control. Do find logans grow very strongly in Perth, so giving them a prune from time to time is definitely worthwhile to stop them from getting absolutely massive and produce, but you still get plenty of that beautiful fruit. So selective pruning, looking again, as I spoke about, with a nectarine and peach tree, you're looking at the shape you want to maintain and what your ideal shape and size of the tree is. But give them a prune, give them a light feed, keep them well watered after pruning, and they'll be absolutely fine. And you'll be able to keep that size under control. Brett Thomas out in Gingin, so it's outside Perth, outside the CBD area. Tried growing carrots on his farm. Leaves looked incredible, full, and pulled out the tiniest carrots in the world. Maybe there's a competition for the world's tiniest carrots. Wants to know how to get a more successful crop. So Brett, carrots do like a deep, rich, friable soil, and not too much nitrogen during the growing period. If you placing fertilizer on them that is heavy in nitrogen, you'll get a lot of green growth. Also, carrots can take a deceptively long time to sometimes form those big tap roots. So you may have just pulled them up a little bit too early. So what you can do with carrots, pretty much like you can do with things like onions and garlic as well, is have a little bit of a scratch around the top of the plant and just see how big that tube is actually setting. If it's still small, just leave it in the ground. Fortunately, once you pull them up, you're pretty much stuck with them. So you might just be a really good baby carrot grower, but if you just cut back on the nitrogen fertilizer, you'll won't get those big luscious tops and hopefully bigger tubers, so you can have yourself a decent feed of roast carrots. Sonia has a Wirtz avocado in a large pot in Melbourne. Looks lovely and healthy, lots of flowers, but they all fell off. Is he lonely? Your Wirtz avocado may definitely be lonely. The avocados do better with a pollinating pair. Now, from memory, and I'm not 100% sure on this, Wirtz, I think, is a B group avocado, so you'll need an A group avocado to cross-pollinate with it. Lamb Hass is a dwarf A group avocado, so you could use that one to help your Wirtz out so you get more fruit set on those flowers. The other thing too you need is a lot of pollinators around at the time that Wirtz is setting flowers. Now, I have been told one of the best pollinators for avocados is actually flies. So if you put some chicken manure around those avocados at flowering time, you'll attract a lot of flies around, and that will also help set. So I don't know where your pot is in relation to your house and how much smell you can take coming from that avocado pot, but that is an option, putting a little bit of chicken manure around as well. But a pollinator will definitely help your Wirtz out and make him a little less lonely and hopefully produce a little more fruit. Jessica Brown has a curly bend ficus that's been in a pot for about 4 years. It looks good, but doesn't seem to be getting any bigger or growing any fuller. Jessica, the curly bend is a smaller growing ficus, so it is a little slightly dwarf variety, but it should definitely be getting fuller and bigger over a period of 4 years. They're not overly fussy, the ficus. If you feed them several times during the warm months, so they grow predominantly through the hotter months, through late spring, summer, and the early part of autumn. So give them a feed. Any general complete fertilizer is fine. When they're growing in pots, I prefer to use Osmocote. It works really well with those. And try liquid feeding them as well. If it's been in the same pot for 4 years, I'd be looking to repot it into some fresh potting mix, slightly bigger pot, fresh potting mix, liquid feeding through the summer months, Osmocote, and you should see some fresh growth on those curly bends there. Proven performer in the ficus family, do really well as a patio and even an indoor plant, and you should definitely be seeing some growth. So repot it and see how you go. Jackson's osteospermums are dying. Having a look at the picture you've got there, Jackson, it's hard to tell if that osteospermum is the pot that it's sitting in. So it's the pot that would have come in from the garden centre, and looks like it's been sat into a bigger pot. If that pot is not draining at all, the white pot underneath, if that's not draining at all and it's filling up with water, those osteospermums will pretty much rot in the pot. The other thing you need to keep in mind with osteospermums or any of these really vigorous annual plants that you get buying pots from the garden centre, they're being watered 3 to 4 times a day to keep them looking in absolute premium condition. So you need to just monitor the soil as well. So it's trying to find that Goldilocks zone of not being too wet and not being too dry, and just don't let them dry out completely. So make sure that pot is draining, it's not sitting in heaps of water, and just check the soil to be 100% sure that soil mix is staying moist enough to support those plants. They will harden off into the gardens really easily, and they're very tough once they get going. Kerry McClure in Rolly Stone wants to know, is it true the new breed of hydrangeas like full sun? Well, Kerry, they supposedly do like full sun. whether I would plant them in full sun is probably another question altogether. You would need to harden them off to its full sun conditions, and they would take probably, I would believe, at least 2 full summers to get to a position where they're full sun in Perth. Like Perth sun in summer is pretty strong, and we don't get the rainfall over the summer months as other parts of the country do. So whether they really will take full sun and still look fantastic is debatable. But if you drive around some of the older suburbs of Perth, where you see some of these really old hydrangeas, many of them are growing in full sun, and they do eventually harden up to it. So if you've got a spot and you're prepared to take a risk on a couple of plants, I would definitely give them a go, but they will need to be hardened off. They won't be fully sun hardened when you buy them in the garden centres right now. So moving on to our competition winner. So this week's lucky winner is Wendy McComb from the Gold Coast. Had the issue with the wet soil, which is a very difficult problem to deal with, those heavy clay soils. Congratulations to Wendy. So if you claim your prize, just please message us on Facebook or via the email, and then we'll sort that out for you straight away. And you'll be able to jump on the Garden Express website and redeem that voucher. Well done. So make sure you hit that like button for us. Everyone listening, if you hit the like button, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for all your questions today. A couple of curly ones in there, which is always good. It's been a pleasure to help. I hope some of my advice will help your garden thrive. We'll be back next week for another live show. Probably won't be me. I think it'll be Trevor will be back next week. So tune in here on Facebook or on YouTube. Please continue to send us your messages during the week via Messenger or via the email to holly@guruproductions.tv. Don't forget to include your location. It really helps. And remember, you can always jump on our website and catch up on previous stories from the Garden Gurus at gardengurus.tv or our YouTube channel, thegardengurus.tv. Reminder, the Garden Gurus will not be airing this week, so our final shows that will be the week after. Trevor should be back next week for the last of the Facebook Lives for the year. Get your questions in early so you don't miss out. Hope you have a great, successful summer in the garden. Happy gardening, everyone, and I'll see you when I see you.